We're live.
All right. Thank you everyone for joining us today. I'll wait just a few seconds here to let everyone get connected up. But hi everyone, my name is Vanessa with the Dallas Public Library, and we do this program series, Grow With Us, in conjunction with the Office of Environmental Quality and Sustainability. We're so happy to have you here today. It seems, I was saying that it seems an appropriate topic since we're getting some showers, and one of the important things is, I think Amanda will talk about is making sure your sprinklers are set so you don't water while it's raining. But just a few housekeeping things for today. You will be muted and your video will be turned off. However, if you have any questions, feel free to put those in the chat, or if you have any comments you want to share, and we'll get to those after the presentation. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Nedra, who will introduce our speaker for today. And thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Vanessa. Thank you for being with us today, and we are very excited to continue our partnership with the Dallas Public Library to present this free program. My name is Nedra Richard Morgan, and I work for the Office of Environmental Quality and Sustainability. Our division is one of over 70 city departments and divisions within the city of Dallas, and our day-to-day focus is on environmental activities, processes, programs, and major plans such as the Comprehensive Environmental Climate Action Plan, also known as CECAP. Our programs range from A to Z: air quality to water conservation to zero waste. Water is life. It is essential for all life on this planet. Because of Dallas' growing population, saving water and using it wisely is critical for the quality of life we all want in our lives. Water saving starts with us at home, and our program today focuses on how we can learn about our sprinkler system and save water. These savings translate into important benefits for our lawns, our water supply, and our wallets. For example, it is raining in much of the Metroplex today. If your sprinkler system does not have a rain sensor, and many older systems do not, please manually turn off your system today and save water. If you don't know how to do this, our speaker is the perfect person to ask. We are very excited to welcome Amanda Griffin back to the virtual podium to share her vast knowledge about sprinkler systems and her enthusiasm about the topic. Learning from Amanda will ensure a green, stronger, healthier lawn and landscape. Amanda is the founder of Smart Outdoor Services, and she will share strategies and tips about using sprinklers in the most efficient way to get the maximum amount of benefit while using the least amount of water. Amanda Griffin was inspired to start the company after she saw a need for active water management and impactful water education. Her passion about smart water solution and her energy and enthusiasm are contagious. As an EPA WaterSense partner and certified irrigation contractor, she has worked in the green industry for 13 years. That includes landscape irrigation auditor certification and certified landscaping irrigation auditor certification. Please help me welcome Amanda Griffin to the virtual podium.
Good morning. Thanks so much for having me. It's wonderful to be back with the City of Dallas's programs. I always enjoy presenting to such a diverse audience, and the questions that you guys ask are always so constructive. So let's jump right in and talk about efficient irrigation. A lot of people think that that is two terms. Those are two terms that may not go together, but hopefully after the end of our session today, you'll have a little better understanding that irrigation can be efficient, and hopefully have some tricks in your back pocket to be well on the way to making your system more efficient for your home. So let's see, I'm going to go to my next slide, maybe. There we go. Here's a little bit about me. Nedra did a wonderful introduction. I am a licensed Texas irrigator. I have 2 certifications from the International Irrigation Association. My husband and I were among the very first EPA WaterSense partners in the irrigation world in Texas. So I think we may be the first 2 from the very beginning when they started that WaterSense partner program for irrigation contractors. We have been a partner from day one. My background includes I am a certified teacher. I taught 7th and 8th grade for about 4 years, about 20 years ago. So having taught 7th and 8th graders, no classroom situation scares me at this point. So I was executive director of the Texas Turf Irrigation Association, which is now rebranded as the Texas Irrigation Association. I was the executive director there for 5 years, where I worked with irrigators across the state to discuss irrigation trends, talk to people about licensing, and educate the public about the importance of using licensed irrigators. So I do have almost 20 years experience in the green industry. My daughter is about to be 19, and I got my irrigation license the summer that she was born. So I joke and say that our irrigation company is our middle child. We have an older daughter and a younger daughter, and Smart Outdoor Services in the middle. So our company specializes in water management. We do system evaluations and inspections. We consult on renovation opportunities and quantify potential savings by weighing water cost savings over time. We do troubleshooting on older systems and electrical issues. And I always like to tell people that we're certified sprinkler nerds. We talk about sprinklers all the time, and we think about sprinklers all the time. As we're walking in restaurants, we look at the sprinklers in the front flower beds and all of those annoying things. So we're definitely certified nerds about sprinklers. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about an irrigation system. I always like to start with an overview of what an irrigation system looks like and the correct terminology for your irrigation system, because my goal is to create a more savvy irrigation consumer so that you can do as many things as you can yourself on your system. And then when you're ready to call in backup with that licensed Texas irrigator, you know the right terminology to visit with them about what you really need on your system. And you feel confident when they're talking to you about your system that you already have a little bit of base knowledge there. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about sprinkler efficiency, what it really means to have efficient sprinklers, and how we decide if a sprinkler is efficient or not. And then we're going to talk about options to improve the efficiency of your existing system. So those are our 3 main objectives today. If you have tuned in to any of my classes before, you have probably seen this graphic or one very similar to it. I use it over and over because it kind of shows you what your sprinkler system looks like. If we could put on our X-ray glasses and look underground, we would see that your irrigation system looks like this. So I have a representation of your house here, a little house icon. And then next to that, I've got an icon of an irrigation controller. Some people call those a clock. Older irrigators sometimes refer to it as a clock. If you've got an irrigator that began his career above the Mason-Dixon line, he might call it a timer. So a controller, a clock, a timer, those are all acceptable terms for the box that's usually in your garage, that what I call the brains of the system. It is where you program what you want the system to do, and it runs electrically all of the parts in your system. So typically in your alley, if you have alleys in your neighborhood, or in the front of your street, if you don't have an alley system, you've got your water source. For most of you, that's going to be your meter from the city. It's going to be your Dallas Water Utilities meter. From that, location the water is going to move into your backflow prevention device. Every system in Texas is required to have a backflow prevention device. It is what maintains the integrity of the Dallas Water Utilities water main systems. If there's ever a backflow or back siphonage situation at the city main line, those backflow prevention devices keep animal feces, chemicals that you might put on your yard, organic materials. It keeps those from going back into the water system. So those are really important parts of your system. Most people don't think about these backflow devices until they're failed, or until an irrigator points out to them that, the handles are rusted off, or the box that contains that device is full of gravel or full of mud. So it's a good idea to know where this backflow device is. It does have 2 handles on it. So if your handles are in good shape, it's a place where you could emergency cut off your water to your sprinkler system if you needed to. But you want to make sure those handles are in good shape, and get a licensed irrigator to take a look at that system or that device for you, make sure it's working. From the backflow prevention device, the pipe that comes out of that device, we call that mainline pipe. That is the pipe that feeds your entire system. Whether you have 3 zones or 17 zones, you've got mainline pipe that's feeding every zone in your system. The reason it's important to know where your mainline is, or to know what your mainline is if you have in the case of a repair, if you have a leak on your system, it's real important to know if it's a mainline leak or a lateral line leak. So if you look in my little blue circles here on our graphic, if I can get my mouse to come back, here we've got zone valves. Okay, these are electrical valves that receive a message from your irrigation controller when it's their turn to water. So the box in your garage is going to say, okay, zone number 2, it's your turn. And it's going to send an electrical message over here to zone number 2. And that valve is going to come on, and water's going to come out of the lateral line. The lateral line is downstream from this valve. So my dotted lines on my little diagram are your lateral lines. If you have a leak in a lateral line, that line is going to leak when this zone is turned on. But if you have a mainline leak, that leak could leak all the time. And that's the kind of leaks that you really want to treat as an emergency and get a plumber or a licensed irrigator out, or, as a last resort, call the city to come and shut down your system. Those are the leaks that can really cause you to have a water bill that's way higher than normal, because that water can just run all the time. So you want to know the difference between your mainline pipe, which is upstream of your valves, my solid line here in my graphic, and your lateral line, which is your dotted lines that go from your valve to your emitters. Now on this system here, I've got my little emitters, and these are actually rotors. All my emitters in this graphic pictured are rotors. Rotors are the kind of emitter, some people call them emitters, some people refer to them as heads. Rotors pop up and spray a curtain of water, and then the head actually moves in a circle. So with a rotor, it pops up and it waters this little circle, and the head itself moves along during its water cycle. The other type of head or emitter is a spray head. And what it does is it pops up and it does a set pattern all the time. It might be a half circle, it might be a full circle, it might be a quarter circle, but it's going to pop up and water to that quarter circle the entire time. It doesn't move. There's also MP rotator nozzles that you may have seen in systems where it looks like the water's kind of dancing. It is still a set pattern, but that water is moving in multi-streams, and it applies water a little slower, a little heavier drops. It's just another option for your spray heads. So you've got your zone valves here, one for every zone in your system. If you have 5 zones in your yard, 5 different areas that water separately, you have 5 valves somewhere in your yard. Each one of those valves feeds your emitters. Most residential zones will have anywhere from 5 to maybe 10 emitters, depending on if you're watering a flower bed or a large turf area. So this blue circle here that I'm indicating with my mouse, with my valve, my lateral line feeding these particular emitters, this is one zone of irrigation. Some people might call it a station. I keep accidentally hitting my forward. So these are zones, or these are stations. So when you're talking to a licensed irrigator, they may say, well, how many zones do you have? How many stations do you have? That they're asking the same thing. And that's how many different areas in your yard that water independently of each other. Those are your zones. So, I think most irrigators in Texas refer to them as zones. Some refer to them as stations. The reason I like to go over this terminology with you is because when we get calls all the time and people will say, oh, I have 5 broken valves in my yard. Well, what they mean is emitters or heads. And so it's difficult. You can save a lot of time by using the correct terminology when you're thinking about your irrigation system. So one thing I always like to mention is that electricity is a large component of your sprinkler system. A lot of people don't think about that there's wires running all over your yard from that box in your garage, your controller or your timer, out to every zone valve. And this is important to know because anytime you do any sort of construction or digging in your yard, if you're adding a garden, if you're installing a dog walk fence or new fencing, even, expanding your gate, any kind of digging in your yard has a potential of breaking those wires, and that will cause that zone or perhaps your entire system to stop running. So the totally free bonus tip of the day that I'm sharing with you on this slide is if you're getting ready to do any kind of project in your front, side, or backyard, it is a great idea to have your licensed irrigator come out and give you an indication of where those wire paths are. Because if you can locate those and be a little more careful during that project, you can save big money by preserving those wires and not breaking them during your project. If they get broken during your project, you may not realize it until your concrete is poured or your patio is set and the contractor's gone and down the road, and then you turn on your system and it doesn't water. Gosh, if I had a nickel for every person that called me and said, hey, I've got a broken zone here and I just added onto my house and that valve could be, lost underneath new foundation. You never know. A lot of people think that construction manager is going to think about those things in your irrigation system. I would never assume that they're going to think of that. They're thinking about the specific item they're working on, and they may not care or may not, they may be oblivious to the fact that they could be causing potential damage in your yard. So that's my big piece of advice for this slide is before you do any kind of construction project, you want to know where those valves are located and your wire path to potentially save big on your project. All right, let's talk about efficiency in your sprinkler system. Efficiency, when we talk about, scientifically about the efficiency of a sprinkler system, as a water auditor, I think about that as a percentage. Okay, so if I were to come out and assess your yard and do a real catch can water audit, what the resulting data from that would be a percentage number. And I would say your system is 95% efficient or 70% efficient. In this example on this slide, I've got 80% DU, distribution uniformity. Your system is 80% efficient. Well, that's an okay number to know and, brag about at your cocktail party. But what does it really mean? I'm 80% efficient. Well, what that means logistically for your water is that in order to get the driest part of your system just wet enough, you have to water the whole system about 20% too much. Okay. So when you think about it in those terms, I'm having to water this entire zone 20% too much to get that one corner just wet enough to keep my plants alive. That really gets you to thinking about how you can improve those numbers in a sprinkler system and how you can eliminate that water waste. That means you're wasting up to 20% on that zone and potentially damaging plants in that part of the zone that's getting too much water. Time and again, clients come to us with dead plants, and many times they're dead from too much water, not enough water. So anything that you can do to improve your distribution uniformity is going to decrease your water bill and improve your plant health. So that is how we measure efficiency as a professional irrigator. We're going to talk a little bit about how you can determine the efficiency of your sprinkler system. So most people know, excuse me, the tuna can trick. You set out your little tuna cans or your cat food cans all over your zone, and you turn your sprinklers on for 5 minutes or 2 minutes, and you see how much water is in each can. You can walk around and look to see if there's any cans that are empty, that didn't get any water at all, cans that are overflowing, that maybe you're getting too much water. That's a good almost free, for the cost of a tuna can, solution to figure out how much water and how the water is being applicated on your system. So that's a worthwhile effort. I like to promote another trick, which I call the flip-flop trick. Put on your flip-flops or go out in your yard in your bare feet and turn your sprinklers on and feel where the water is. I know it sounds a little silly, but if you've never walked around in your yard while your sprinklers are on, you're missing an entire world of information that can really help you solve problems in your landscape. So I'm calling this the flip-flop trick. Go out in your yard and turn your sprinklers on and see where your feet are getting the most wet. Walk around in that zone and you'll really quickly be able to tell, well, gosh, this corner over here, I can't even feel any drops on my feet. Whereas when I stand over there, I'm splashing around in water. So that is an easy, unscientific way to assess a zone and see, if water is being distributed evenly in your system. We'll talk about what to do with that information in just a minute. But another way to figure out how efficient your sprinkler system is take a little bit of time to observe your landscape. Your landscape plants are your best indicator of where your water is working for you and where your water is leaving something to be desired. So by watching for plants that just don't look as good as the ones around it, or if you have an area of your yard where you have to replace the landscape repeatedly. We had a client recently that we went out to see, and they said, we have to replace the grass in this area of our yard almost every year. Well, they sodded their yard 2 or 3 times and never thought to look at the sprinklers. So we turned it on. We saw some very obvious problems in that area, fixed their sprinklers. They sodded and haven't had to sod again. So just observing your landscape. I know that's not a magic bullet or a top secret tip that is, revolutionary, but people underestimate just the power of observation. And a lot of people don't take any time to run their irrigation system in the daylight hours when they can walk around with their coffee cup and observe how their plants are getting water from their irrigation zone. So I would encourage you to do that on a Saturday morning or a Sunday morning. Just pour you a cup of coffee, turn your irrigation system on a 2-minute test, and walk around your yard and see what you can see. You may not see a problem that you already know how to fix. But if you know where the problem is, that's half the battle. And you can get a licensed irrigator in there to help you and work efficiently as well. Watching your sprinklers in action is my other bullet point on this slide here. Turning your system on and looking at it. A lot of people are leery of that box in their garage. They don't really understand how to run it. They don't really know how to run their system manually. And I would say learn your irrigation controller. YouTube, email me if I'm wrong, but YouTube is going to have a video about your particular controller and how to turn it on manually, how to program it, instructional video. Every irrigation controller that I've ever had to work with, there's YouTube information about it. If you happen to have one that there's no YouTube video about, email me and I will make one and add it to YouTube just for you. But I can guarantee you that that's possible. Overcoming that confidence obstacle about the box in your garage, that will put you light years ahead once you're comfortable with that box, because then you'll feel comfortable observing your landscape, observing your sprinklers in action. So the bottom line is, you don't have to know that percentage number to make some changes in efficiency in your system. Okay. Knowing that number's handy. It's nice if you are reporting it to some kind of entity, but it's not necessary in order to take some steps to improve your efficiency. So we've talked about this. Efficiency is revealed in your landscape. If you have stressed plants, if you have plants that never make it, if you have dead plants, if you have weak turf, if you have really green turf in one area and then this other turf just can barely stay green, you've got an efficiency problem in your sprinkler system. Wet spots in your yard can be an indication of poor efficiency. Dry spots, obviously. If you have hardscape damage or discoloration, if your fence has a white rainbow on it because your sprinklers hit your fence every single time they come on, if your sidewalk has cracks in it, if your sprinklers overspray onto your windows, all of those things are indications that your sprinkler system is not performing at its maximum efficiency. Okay. And all of those problems are solvable, and many of them are solvable in a very economic, budget-friendly way. A lot of times we'll be called in to look at somebody's drainage problem. And I would tell you 7 or 8 times out of 10, a drainage problem isn't necessarily a drainage problem. It's I'm running my sprinklers too long and my neighbor's running their sprinklers too long problem. And it's causing something that looks like a drainage problem. And it's really just a scheduling issue. So paying attention, I'm convinced that in the world of water management, there's this magical phenomenon called people suddenly paying attention. When you really start paying attention to your system, then a lot of those problems become clear, if not the solution to them. So let's talk a little bit about sprinkler solutions. On this slide, I say don't blame the sprinklers for everything. Your perceived efficiency problems might be related to something else in your organic network that makes up your sprinkler system and your landscape. Plant choice is critical. Putting the right plant in the right place on your yard means the difference between success and failure. If you tune in next week to our next session, I'm going to be talking about plants, native and adaptive plants, and accommodating new landscaping in your sprinkler system. So make plans now to tune in next week, and we'll talk a little bit more about plant choice. But I did want to add it here just so that I could give you that teaser for next week, and you could already have it on your radar. Maintenance is required on your sprinkler system, okay? Just like if you are riding on the highway and you run out of gas in your car, you're not going to blame your car. Okay. That's your fault. You ran out of gas. Any other mechanical system on your household, your air conditioner, your washer, your dryer, your dishwasher, all of those things need occasional maintenance or repair, and your sprinkler system is no different. Your sprinkler system is a hydraulic system. It's an electrical system. It's a mechanical system. It has all of these different systems working together to deliver water where you need it, when you need it. So maintenance is definitely overlooked in a lot of sprinkler systems. And hey, I don't blame you. It's not nearly as enjoyable looking at your sprinkler system as it is planting some beautiful plants or some flowers in your flower beds. I always say that sprinklers aren't sexy, but they are definitely needed to make the enjoyable parts of your yard more enjoyable. Your landscape will grow and mature, and sometimes that will require a change to your sprinkler system. If you're taking those into account as your landscape matures, they're typically not very expensive solutions, but people don't really think about that a lot of times. And so they'll have a 12, 15-year-old landscape and they've never made any kind of sprinkler changes. I always encourage people to budget in sprinkler upgrades or retrofitting to any landscape project. Even if you're just replacing your winter color with your spring color, go ahead and budget some money in there to check those sprinklers, make sure they're in good working order, make sure they're functional, and make any changes that you might need. If you're changing the footprint of a flower bed, you're definitely going to need to make changes to your system. And your components wear out and they weather. They're exposed to UV all the time. They're exposed to whatever chemicals you're using on your yard. Even if you're using all organic materials, those things have a long-term effect on the plastic components of your sprinkler system. So I would encourage you to think about maintenance on your irrigation system like you do any other system in your house. And don't confuse efficiency with functionality, okay? You can blame a sprinkler system for being inefficient. Well, you can have the most efficient system in the world, but if you have leaks and breaks, you're never going to reach your water conservation goals, okay? So frequent inspection is definitely a big piece of a water management plan. Frequent inspection and prompt repair. If you see something broken, you've got to fix it. You got to treat it like an emergency in your mind before that next watering session. Water follows the path of least resistance. So if you have a break in your line, all of the water on that zone is going to come running out of that break. Okay, so the rest of your zone's not going to get the water that it needs, and you're going to have a big wet mushy spot, and you're going to waste water because none of that water is really usable to your landscape, and it's just going to run and run and run. So your water bill is just going to go up. So any improvements that you make are going to be canceled if you don't address breaks and leaks. Clogged nozzles are another common maintenance issue in sprinkler systems. You may think that you have a poor head layout because you've got a really dry spot in a corner or along an edge. Turn that sprinkler on and look at that nozzle. Is water coming out of that entire nozzle, or is it clogged up? A lot of times you can clean those with a little blade in the nozzle. Nozzles are also very, very cheap. You can screw that nozzle off and replace it with a new one. So clogged nozzles are definitely an efficiency killer in your system. And I've just repeated again, for those in the back, regular sprinkler inspections are key to any water conservation plan. If you do want to spend a little more money on your system, there are flow meters or flow counters that you can install on your main line, which will measure the water going into your system. And most of them have a feature where it will send you an alert if any of your zones water more water than the system system is anticipating. So you set up your system under these particular parameters, and then that flow feature can send you an alert if something's out of whack. If something's flowing less water than it usually does or more water than it usually does, it can send you an alert. The flow options for residential properties have really come a long way in the last few years, and there's a lot of new options, smart home options that can help you count your irrigation water. Again, that's kind of more of an upgrade option. You can figure out some of the same answers and potential solutions to your system with regular sprinkler inspections. Do that on your Saturday morning. If you don't have time and you are not going to be the kind of person that goes out and runs your sprinkler system once a month or twice a month in the summertime, find you a licensed irrigator that will come by on a regular interval and just run your system for you. He fixes a couple of heads and sends you a small bill, and you're good to go. You're going to continue to save water, and your system's going to be working efficiently. Your landscape will thank you. So here's a few do's and don'ts, some little tricks for you with your sprinkler maintenance program. Don't assume that your landscape maintenance contractor is maintaining your system, okay? A lot of people that have regular lawn service live under the delusion that their mow, blow, and go guy is adjusting their sprinklers. And I can almost promise you that he's not thinking about your sprinklers. If he does think about your sprinklers, he thinks about turning them up because things aren't green enough, okay? Having a knowledgeable person who is thinking of water conservation in mind when they're looking at your system can make all the difference. Don't assume that your lawn guy adjusts the box. And don't assume that if he does adjust your box, that he's doing it with efficiency in mind. He's doing it with, I got to keep everything green so I can keep billing this client in mind. That's their mindset. That's not a criticism. That's just the way it is in most, especially residential lawn maintenance programs. A lot of times they don't default to managing your water. A lot of times they can. They may offer that as a service. It might be an add-on service. So if you are interested in your landscape maintenance guy taking a look at your system or looking at your water, talk to them about it, find out what's included in your contract already, and find out if there's additional options that you can add on. Definitely do look at your system regularly. Okay, learn how to manually run your controller. I gave you guys that pep talk. Go to YouTube, put in your controller brand and model, and you're going to find those videos. There are a lot of controllers nowadays that are very economical for homeowners to be able to run their controller from their smartphone. Look at those, talk to your licensed irrigator about those options. We have a singular technology that we love in my company that we recommend, but there are many others that allow you to run your system from your phone. You could be standing in your kitchen and turn on zone 4 that waters outside your kitchen window and watch it from there. As you're pulling in your driveway, if your flowers look dry in the afternoon, you can click and give them a little drink of water while you go in the house and start supper. So those remote options can really improve the level of detail that will that allow you to manage your system with a lot more frequent system adjustments. Okay. Don't miss out on your controller features. The controller that you have right now in your garage probably has some water conservation features already on it. Again, this is my same sermon about learning your irrigation controller. Most irrigation controllers already have a seasonal adjust setting. They already have a cycle and soak setting, some settings to help you water just what you need in that zone and not more. Go ahead and learn those. And if you find that you have maybe an older controller that doesn't really have very many water saving features, again, New controllers are very economical, and the new ones have a lot of water saving features on there. That alone, more actively managing your sprinkler schedule, can easily save you 20% on your water bill just by actively managing it. I say, don't do it alone. Don't go it alone. Don't do this all by yourself. Go ahead and have confidence to call in a licensed irrigator if you need some help. If you can solve a few things by going to Home Depot, wonderful. Now Home Depot and Lowe's and the larger box stores have a lot of more efficient sprinkler options. And there are others that your licensed irrigator can have access to. So there's a great website, dallasia.org, where you can find a licensed irrigator that's a Dallas Irrigation Association member. And now that you've got your vocabulary of the parts of your system, you can call 2 or 3 of them and tell them what you want. Tell them, hey, I've already looked at my system. I've already addressed some problems. I've got 3 things that I need your advice on, or I need your help on, or I need you to come bill me a service call and give me some information. Interview those guys or those girls, those professionals, and find one that will help you at the level that you're comfortable with paying for. There's guys that will come out and do everything for you. There are companies that will come out and just give you some advice and charge you a nominal fee. And then there's guys that will, talk you through a program. So don't feel like you're all alone, or that hiring a professional is out of your budget. It's not necessarily. Just be honest with the irrigator, tell them what you're looking for, and then pick one that you connect with over the phone. It's just like any other professional. You kind of have to talk to them and see if they're a right fit for you. Okay, remember, you don't have to know your DU number. You don't have to have that percentage to make improvements in efficiency. Let me talk to you a little bit about the technology that I'm the most excited about to improve efficiency in irrigation systems. This is technology that my company is using and that we recommend at every opportunity. I've got 3 of these that I'm going to talk to you about. PRS CV heads is number 1. Okay. It stands for pressure regulating check valve heads. Okay. City pressures are high. They have to be. They're servicing so many people. We see excessive pressure on almost 99% of systems that we visit. Okay. There's too much pressure feeding the system. What excessive pressure does is it distorts the pattern of water so that you lose more water to wind, and water doesn't go where you think it's going with the technology that you have, with the emitter that you have. If you have a rotor or a spray head operating with excessive pressure, it's moving more water through that emitter. It's making the water droplets smaller because it's pushing them through at such high pressure. So you're losing a lot more water. We recommend putting pressure regulated check valve heads on every head in your system. Okay, it's going to save you water. What the check valve does, if you have any slopes in your yard at all, even a very gentle slope along the front or the back, check valve heads are going to be crucial to your water savings. Okay, they're a little flap or just a little disc in the bottom of the head that when that zone shuts off, it retains water in the line so that it doesn't leak out that head after the zone is turned off. If you have slopes in your yard and you at the bottom of the hill, you just have an eternal wet spot, you have low head drainage. When that zone turns off, all the water from all of those lateral lines drain out of that bottom head, and they're creating your water problem. Those pressure regulated check valve heads will retain that water in the line, and all of the heads in that zone will function at the same pressure from beginning to end. It's difficult to not sound like I'm overestimating the benefits of pressure regulation and check valves. They will change the performance of your system. It will make the head perform in the manufactured recommended pressure range, and it will retain that water in the line. If you do this on every head in your system, you're going to see improved performance. You're going to be able to really see where head layout issues are affecting your efficiency, and you're going to save water. Because if you think about it, if that zone drains out of that one bottom head, what happens when your system comes back on? You've got to fill up that whole line before those sprinklers are really doing their job. So you're wasting 2-3 minutes filling up those lines when that zone comes on again. Another really valuable efficiency option is high efficiency nozzles. If you have nozzles on your system that are 5 years old even or older, you can save money by switching just the nozzle, not the whole spray head, not the whole emitter body, just the nozzle on the top. There are high efficiency nozzles. Multiple irrigation brands carry high efficiency nozzles, and nozzles, you know, they're molded, they're plastic. Over time, if debris comes through them, they can affect their performance, and you know, nozzles can just kind of wear out over time. Retrofitting your nozzles to high efficiency nozzles can really help save water. Coupling that with a pressure regulated check valve retrofit, you're setting yourself up for savings. The last item, and it's one that Vanessa mentioned when we first got on the call, is a rain freeze sensor. Rain and freeze sensors, you guys, they are required by Texas state law on every system. They are good technology, but not great technology. Okay, I'm going to show you what a rain freeze sensor looks like. You have two pieces to most brand of rain freeze sensor. This is just a random photo of one that I collected to show you. You've got the part that's typically mounted on your roof or your fence that has the weather sensing, the rain sensing device on it. And then you typically have this box that wires into your irrigation controller so you can go out and look at it and see if the rain sensor is tripped, okay? The inside of that, the inside of this right here is basically, it has these slices of, it's basically like a wine cork. They're hydroscopic discs, okay? When those discs get wet, they get fatter and they disconnect the wire from your system to make it turn off while it's wet. Then when those discs dry out, they shrink back down and they restore that electrical connection to your system. So it tells the system, hey, it's too wet to water. Okay, I'm dried out now, you can water again. They work fine, they work okay, but in our very hot North Texas summers and very dry winters, and when we get rain that's all at once, or it's just a drizzle over time, those wine corks have a limited life, okay? Eventually, they'll kind of get hydrophobic, where it's harder for them to absorb water. They just don't last a long time. It's just sort of a limit on the technology. So I recommend that if your rain freeze sensor is about 5 years old, you will probably benefit by getting another one, by getting a new one. They're very economical. They shouldn't be expensive. There's some very economical options for you, and they'll shut off your system when it's raining or when it's freezing. Now we've had some scary freezing events the last couple of years in North Texas, or in Texas in general, and these will also turn off your system at about 37 degrees. So they're a great tool to have if they're working. And when you're checking out parts of your system, excuse me, when you're checking out parts of your system, your rain freeze sensor can be a piece of that. check it out. Make sure it's working. You can toggle the little thing, and it will indicate to your irrigation controller that it's working. The other thing most people don't know about their rain and freeze sensor is that they're adjustable. You can adjust it to where it shuts off your system at a 1/4 inch or a 1/2 inch or 3/4 of an inch. A lot of times people don't realize that they're adjustable, or they don't know what their rain freeze sensor is set to. Is it set to 3/4 of an inch? Is it set to a 1/2 an inch? You don't know. This is a different brand than that other page, but you can see they look really similar to each other. They're not a heavy technology piece of equipment. It's very mechanical in there with those hydroscopic discs, but you can adjust your setting to shut off with just a little bit of water, or you can expand it to where it will accept, up to an inch of water before it shuts off. So utilizing that can help give you a lot more control over when your system turns on or turns off. Okay, we are closing in on the hour here. We've got about 5 minutes. So I'm going to summarize here and then see what questions we have. I just want to give you a quick overview that all irrigation requires maintenance, and maintenance is your #1 area for improving your water savings and your efficiency of your system. Decrease your overall sprinkler spending, save on water bills, it improves your plant performance. And we'll talk a little bit about drip next week, but if you have drip on your system, it also can require some maintenance. It's a little bit different than other parts of your system, but definitely it can be worth it, especially if you have some overspray issues on your hardscape. Let's talk a little bit about numbers, right? How much am I really going to save if I do these things that you're telling me about, Amanda? Because, I don't have money set aside in my budget to spend on my sprinklers. If I decide to do this, what can I expect to save? I'm giving you these numbers. These are real, true data collected numbers from clients that we have worked with examples of savings, okay? Upgrading to a modern remote-based controller, minimum 20% savings. Having the ability to manage your sprinkler schedule more actively in the palm of your hand is going to help you save at least 20%, okay? If you couple that with regular inspections, that can go even higher. If you convert your heads to PRS CV heads, average savings is 34%. Okay, that's 34% less water flowing through your emitters without changing anything else, y'all. Okay, we're not doing the controller also. We're not cutting back the number of minutes we're watering. We're doing the exact same terrible behaviors we did last summer, but we're doing it on PRS CV heads. You can save an average of 34%. Okay, that's how impactful those high city pressures can be on your system, and how much room for improvement you've got with that easily accessible technology. Last year we did a complete retrofit on a residential property. We did the PRS CV head upgrades. We converted the controller to a remote-based controller. We did a couple of inspections for this homeowner last year. He wasn't a contracted client. We didn't go by every month. We just did these changes to his system. He called us over the winter and said, I want you to know my water bill is down 60% from before you guys came to see me. He was thrilled. He's a bookkeeper, so he had every penny accounted for. And he said, we've saved 60% with the changes that you implemented for us. So the savings can be substantial. It's a matter of setting your attention where you want to really save. And these 3 technologies, having the rain freeze sensor in place, having those pressure regulated CV heads, paying attention regularly to your system, and then potentially upgrading to controller technology, all of those things are going to increase your efficiency. You're talking about using less water, not having a lot fewer dead plants or struggling plants. It's going to increase your success with growing in new plants. So I can't stress enough that you can save and you can retrofit with these technologies. So we've got about 4 minutes or so. I want to take some of your questions, and then we'll talk a little bit about what we'll talk about next week. What do we have any questions, Vanessa or Nidra, that I can answer?
We don't have any so far. If you want to drop those in the chat, I did put a few links in the chat as we were talking about different things. But some people may not be aware that you can actually, I put the link in here for savedallaswater.com. You can actually, if you live in the city of Dallas, apply for a free irrigation audit.
Yes.
So I encourage people to take advantage of that service. And if you
absolutely, I recommend that highly. I know the irrigators that work for the city of Dallas, and we have come along and worked behind them several times, that they'll do a review of a system, and then we happen to be the irrigator that person calls. They give a lot of information, a lot of good information, and it's completely free. So you can't go wrong with signing up for one of those. Those are wonderful. I'm so glad you shared that link.
And if you live in a different city in the Dallas area, I recommend probably calling your local city and see what they offer there as well. Let's see. Oh, this is a good question. So I put the link to apply for the free irrigation audit in the chat. I'll drop that in again. And if you can't get it free, how much do you expect to spend by hiring someone to do an audit for you?
Well, I'll tell you that normally when people call me to schedule an audit, I talk them through that a little bit, because normally really what they're wanting is an inspection. Now, if somebody calls and they want to know their DU percentage and they want me to come and do a catch can audit, I'll do that for them. But typically I can give them their list of problems with potential solutions without actually doing the audit piece. A big part of doing the audit is that initial inspection and notating the issues that we notice in the sprinkler system. So when you call to schedule that with somebody, you let them know that you're interested in the information that an audit might give, but they may really just do an inspection for you. And you can implement the same kinds of solutions without knowing that number with a good irrigation inspection. That's going to vary from company to company. Sometimes it may just be a service call. If we do an actual water audit with catch can data, I can tell you what my company would charge you. You might find, the price is going to run the gamut, but we charge $350 per zone that we come out and do a water catch can setup, where we set up the cans, we run the water, we measure each can, we put it into our formulas to give you a DU on that particular zone. But a big piece of that is doing that initial inspection, because officially to do a International Irrigation Association audit, you're supposed to address all those things that need to be changed before you take your numbers. Now, a lot of times we'll do a pre-number and say, okay, your DU is 65%, and then make the changes. We can do a second one and go, you've improved your DU, but now your DU is 80%. So that's possible. But again, it's not completely necessary in order to implement the changes on your system. You can get the same benefit without paying the extra money for just that DU number. A good inspection will give you the same information.
Great, and this is a good question too. If we need to know where the sprinkler lines are located, what's the cost for finding those? And because they need to replace a fence, so.
Oh, they need to replace a fence?
So they how would they go about, like, what's usually the typical cost of like locating the sprinkler lines?
Well, I'll tell you, if you know where your valve boxes are in your yard, the little green circles, or maybe they're rectangles, they're all usually sprinkled throughout your yard. Most systems in Texas are designed where the zone valve is approximately in the middle of where the zone is going to service. If you know where those valve boxes are, it's going to be a lot cheaper to identify your wire path and your piping path. But if you don't know where those are, it's really just an hourly search. I would definitely call and interview the irrigator and make sure that they have wire tracing equipment and that they have some confidence in finding the layout of your system, because I mean, it just takes as long as it takes. I mean, I would like to say, oh, it'll take 2 hours, but it could take more than that. We could show up and go, oh, we have driven up to a system before and looked at about 2 pieces of it and said, oh, we know who the irrigator was that put this in 15 years ago. We recognize it. It's a so-and-so system. And then, we could find the layout real quickly in that case. But, that's going to be a rarity. And it's probably, depending on who you call, going to be just hourly charge for that. But I'll tell you, it's a lot cheaper to find it before it gets broken than after. So I still recommend it, even if it costs you, $300 or $400. That's a lot less than having to break up your new patio to get the valve out from underneath it. So I definitely still recommend it.
Yes, it definitely will save money in the like you said, in the long run.
Yeah, definitely.
So this is something someone asked. This is something personally I'm curious with, because our house has foundation issues. But can irrigation lines cause foundation issues in the Dallas area?
Absolutely. Irrigation can cause foundation issues. And for that reason, a lot of irrigators elect not to offer foundation watering zones. The trend has become, and it was really more popular some years back, but even now, people will want a line of drip around their foundation. If it's done exactly right, it can be a benefit, and if it's monitored. But a lot of irrigators won't do that because they don't want the liability. If you're overwatering in our heavy clay soils in North Texas, our soils heave and shrink. So, inefficient sprinklers can definitely cause foundation issues. It's usually pretty rare and extreme for it to be the sole cause of your foundation problems, but it can definitely exacerbate it, especially if you're not maintaining your sprinkler system and you're not maintaining your foundation areas around the house. The soil in your yard needs to be what we say sucked up to the edge of your house. You shouldn't have a gap. So in our environment and our soils, that's definitely something you want to look at. On that Saturday morning when you're walking around looking at your sprinklers, check your foundation as well. Sprinklers can definitely be a cause of that. They're not usually the worst cause, because it'll cause other problems before that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. So I don't see any other questions in the chat. Does anybody have any last minute questions for Amanda? And just a reminder, Amanda will be with us next week for our second part. So I think she's going to go over a little bit what she's going to cover next week too.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about plant choice and how your plant layout and plant choice can affect your sprinkler system, and things that you need to think about with your sprinkler system when you're making landscape changes. So that should be an exciting episode, and I hope to have some good resources for you guys on plants that do well in the North Texas region. So tune in next week and we'll have that ready for you guys.
Yes, and I'm sure if you think of any questions during the week while you're looking at your sprinkler system, maybe you're looking next Saturday or Sunday before the program, be sure to gather those questions, and Amanda will be back and she'll be able to answer those hopefully as well. I dropped a link for next week's session if you want to go ahead and register if you haven't already. And also this Thursday, we're having another Earth Day Every Day talking about the North Central Texas Council of Governments. So if you're interested in seeing how you can get involved in the environment on a local level in North Texas, be sure to check out that program as well. Thank you, Amanda, so much for sharing. Oh my gosh, you know so much about sprinklers. It's amazing. I know I'm gonna have to take another look at my sprinkler system here. I think I was fortunate enough to see one of your other sessions, and I did an initial thing, but now with the warmer weather coming up, I definitely need to do a another inspection of it.
Definitely do it now before the hot summer weather creeps in. So
Yes.
irrigators will be able to get you on their schedule now, but in about 2 weeks, they're going to be booked out. So get it done.
All right. Thank you so
All
much.
right. Well, thank you guys for having me. I enjoyed it, and we'll see you next week.
Yes, thank you so much. Enjoy this. Well, today's rain.
Definitely turn those systems off today.
Yes. All right. Thank you all so much, everyone.